The global resource sector depends heavily on contracted aircraft operations, often in remote and inhospitable environments, to fly personnel to and from their places of work, such as an exploration camp, mine site, or an offshore oil and gas platform, as well as moving equipment externally by helicopters, performing low-level exploration flights, conducting offshore helicopter operations, or providing a medical evacuation capability. More than 2 million resource sector personnel are moved each year by members of the International Council on Mining and Metals, or ICMM, using contracted aircraft operators. These resource companies own and operate more than 40 aerodromes globally and spend more than $500 million annually on services from a pool of more than 2,000 aircraft. The resource sector recognises contracted aviation is the single largest risk to personal safety, which, if not controlled, can result in a material unwanted event that can have catastrophic or fatal consequences. Managing aviation risk in the resource sector requires a risk owner to apply the same level of discipline as they would to other significant industry risks, such as underground fire and explosion, mine wall collapse, high occupancy vehicle movement, mine pit vehicle interaction, mine blasting, or an arc blast incident. To assist in the risk management process, the ICMM and their membership produced the Health and Safety Critical Control Management Good Practice Guide. This document outlines risk management as identifying and managing those controls which are critical in preventing catastrophic events. Working towards ensuring critical controls are in place and effective is key to avoiding a material unwanted event associated with aviation. The ICMM guide aptly describes the 9 steps required for planning and implementation of the critical control management process. To complement the ICMM process, the Flight Safety Foundation, in collaboration with the resource sector, has worked to complete the first 5 steps of the ICMM process and identified 5 minimum critical controls required for all contracted aviation operations. These were determined through analysis of all industry accidents and their causal factors over a 10-year period. The 5 minimum critical controls have been identified as personnel critical control, which ensures flight crew assigned to the contract meet all license and experience requirements and are fit for work. Aircraft critical control, a control ensuring the aircraft type is appropriate for the activity and that it is suitably equipped and serviceable. The fuel critical control, which ensures any contracted aircraft receives clean fuel to allow the engines to continue operation and that the aircraft has sufficient fuel on board for the activity. Weather monitoring and forecasting critical control, ensuring flight crew have the necessary information to determine appropriateness of environmental conditions to operate in, and infrastructure, a critical control that ensures aircraft operate from runways, helipads or helidecks that meet appropriate design requirements. By defining the 5 minimum critical controls and their associated performance standards, it enables a resource company to go straight to Step 6 of the ICMM process and nominate an accountable risk owner who can then focus on making certain critical control implementation occurs. The design standard that sits behind these minimum critical controls is the Flight Safety Foundation's internationally acclaimed and recognized Basic Aviation Risk Standard, or BARS, with which the resource sector takes a leadership role in its governance. Since the resource sector interacted with the Flight Safety Foundation more than 7 years ago to establish the BARS program, the number of industry aviation accidents have been in decline. The documented performance standards for each critical control are freely available to all member organizations who form part of the Flight Safety Foundation's BARS program. And this includes training courses of personnel interacting with aviation operations and risk. The performance standards outline the critical controls, design, operating standard, and verification steps used to ensure continued effectiveness. It is a genuine off-the-shelf industry-accepted framework for management of the single largest risk to the safety of resource sector personnel. Each resource company owns their own aviation risk and cannot outsource the responsibility. Use of the ICMM Critical Control Management Good Practice Guide, the Flight Safety Foundation's 5 Minimum Critical Controls, and the BARS program will assist resource companies in continuing to save lives within the global resource sector and surrounding communities, and importantly, ensure their workforce returns home safely.